All right, more on Reagan, celebrating Reagan. Here we are at the Reagan Library, first Reagan Economic Conference. French Hill, the best of the best from the great state of Arkansas. He's now chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. Beth Van Duyne, great state of Texas, member of the House Ways and Means Committee. So you were you had been born already during the Reagan years, during the first term. You swore that.
I was double digits. I was double digits.
Well, that's good. I like that. I mean, my thought, of many thoughts about Reagan. He changed everything.
Yeah.
And in particular, he changed the future of this country, changed the recession, inflation, doldrums. People said you couldn't run the government. He did. He ran it, okay? He had internally, there were always debates, but nonetheless, he ran the government very well. Phenomenal prosperity. He also changed the course of world history. He defeated Soviet communism, which was about 70 years old. And, everybody was touting the youthful Gorbachev, who was supposed to be the savior of Soviet communism, and Reagan crushed him. I mean, it's extraordinary how he changed everything.
He communicated well, and he said things in a matter-of-fact way, in a very personable way that people could understand and relate to. And instead of, constantly, I think, moving people to the left, he was able to move people to the right with just sheer charisma and talking. And he never seemed like he was ever talking down to anybody, right? There was not the superiority. It was just common sense talk. It was great.
He was a Midwesterner, right? That's what you're kind of saying, a common sense guy. But again,
kind of like a Texan.
He changed the Republican Party. Republican Party was basically the Democratic light after the FDR, with just a few small exceptions, right? Republicans always said we can't cut taxes because it would cause deficits. So first we have to cut spending to get rid of deficits and then have tax cuts. The problem is they never cut spending. And we always had deficits and then never had tax cuts. And Reagan said, the hell with that. We're going to cut taxes first. And changed everything. And it's still true today.
Reagan was the best because we came out of the doldrums of the 1970s, over-regulation, overtaxed, overspent, massive inflation. And he had, as you said, that sunny disposition that says, we're going to get the government out of your lives. We're going to end these government programs. We're going to cut your taxes. We're going to make the opportunity, your opportunity to succeed. And he created, really, the Reagan Democrats that I now believe are the Trump Democrats.
Right.
For the same message.
Right.
Look at Biden. Look at the pandemic. And you go into the voting booth in 2024, do you want to go back to the Biden economy, the Biden inflation, the Biden regulatory policy, the Biden taxes? No.
Biden is the New Deal, the New Dealer.
Yeah,
okay,
and he said he wanted to be.
That's right. Sort of like the New Deal on steroids. That was Biden. And the public said, no, we don't want any more of that, okay? And then he got into all this cultural leftism, which the public rejected, too.
Well, Biden just said the government can do everything for you. And people said, we want to be able to do it for ourselves.
Exactly. Reagan message right there. Total Reagan message. But my thought here is, all right, Trump and Reagan are different people, right? But when you look at what they're trying to do, what Mr. Trump is trying to do, it's very similar. I mean, the tax cuts, the deregulation, running against the swamp, strong military. And I want to make a point about trade, which is often overlooked, okay? A lot of people may not like what I'm about to say. Reagan was not a pure free trader. Reagan slapped on what was then called, and Bob Lighthizer was a young man there, and I was a young man there, voluntary restraint agreements. We were worried about Japan and their big advancement and over us on electronics, okay? Yeah. And then, of course, the Japanese were buying up Rockefeller Center. So Reagan had a little protectionist blood in him, or let's say a little fair trade blood in him, just the way Trump does. So there's a lot of similarities.
I do see it the same way. That fair trade.
Free trade, right?
Yeah.
But free trade is one thing, but fair trade is something else. And when you start thinking about what we did with China not that long ago, allowing a free trade agreement, the idea was that China was going to come more and more toward, Western values. That didn't happen. What they did do, though, is they took money that they were making through trade. They abused the U.S. They took IP. Internet. They took our all of our ideas, all of our innovations. They stole that, and then they took those dollars and they started basically investing in other countries, playing the long-term game. And we have allowed this to happen over decades. So the fact that Trump is coming in and is like, look, we've been abused for decades. We're going to start taking back our authority. We have a magnificent market, and we're going to have a pay for play. If you want to have access to the American market, it's going to cost you. We've been giving it away for far too long. We want American companies to be able to benefit.
I agree, but I'm just saying Reagan, who was usually viewed as a pure free trader, and Trump, who's usually viewed as this terrible protectionist, actually were saying many of the very same things. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Japan was the big problem in those days. China is probably a bigger problem today. I'm telling you, Reagan changed the course of history, and he changed the course of the Republican Party. And Donald Trump, you said it, those Reagan Democrats migrated now. They are Trump Republicans. And the Democratic Party has a hole the size of this entire convention space. Yeah. And don't know how to replace it. Last word, French Hill.
Well, I just would say, back on the trade issue, he used Section 301 against Japan, both in semiconductors and voluntary auto restraints. And what was the result of that, though? Japan's one of the largest investors in the United States now. And Japan is a longtime trading partner with the U.S. and has been a much changed place. We now have access. Back in those days, you couldn't have a store over the size of a 5 and dime, and now you can have a big box store. That's the kind of market opening that Reagan and Bush both accomplished by pushing market opening, fair trade. We're going to be treated the same way, and it worked, and I think it can work again.
Fair trade is good trade. You're absolutely right, especially when it has lots of tax cuts. French Hill, Beth Van Duyne, thank you very much for coming.